Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 126 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. My name is Byron. I'm here with my good buddy Gary. Gary, what's happening?
How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's doing great.
I'm sure we are out there. I'm doing great. We have an interview with Shawn Williams.
And Shawn, I know most of you guys probably know who he is. He's the 5th American black belt. He's a black belt under Renzo Gracie. They even got a guard named after him, the Shawn Williams guard. I know they don't have a Gary Hull guard or a Byron Jabara guard. But so, when you got a guard named after you, you are the man. But that's a great guy to learn from, so stay tuned for our interview and listen to what Shawn has to say. Yep,
and you know him from countless times you've watched competition video. He's done a ton of commentary. We talk about that a little bit too, but he's always... he seems like one of the main people that's given live commentary and just helping make live grappling more of a spectator sport, I think, especially over the internet in the late years here.
Yeah, and I think everybody really likes he's so knowledgeable, and he knows all those guys, so when he is commentating, it just makes it that much better to watch and listen. So just not only a great jiu-jitsu artist, a great commentator.
Yeah, a lot of stuff this interview, and we're going to have it all on the show notes, which can be conveniently emailed to you in your email inbox. If you go to the website, bjjbrick.com, or our Facebook page, there's a little form to fill out with your name and email address, and every Tuesday, boom, we'll send you out an email with the show notes. Pretty easy.
Pretty easy, just like Byron said. All you got to do is boom, and it's there.
Boom.
Boom's the key word. But, hey, also check out Byron's audiobook. It's called Your First Year in BJJ. It's only $11.99, and it's 2.5 hours of just like our podcast, Byron talking, walking you through your first year of jiu-jitsu. It can be anything from how to make jiu-jitsu more fun to tournament prep to what moves to concentrate on. So it's just a great guide for your first year, which, in my opinion, is your hardest year. Trying to start the sport and know what to learn, what to do. It's just that first year is a little rough. So this is a tool to get you through that first year. So once you survive that first year, there's a really, really good chance you're going to keep going and going and going forever. So check it out. There's a link to it on the show notes. Your first year in BJJ, only $11.99 from none other than Byron Jabara.
There we go. Thanks, Gary, for those kind words, and I hope the book helps some people out there. Gary, we were talking about before the show starts our quote of the week. Not exactly a jiu-jitsu quote, but I think we could relate it to what we do here on the podcast.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of our quotes lately haven't come from jiu-jitsu people, but as long as it relates, that's all that counts. But this time we have a quote from an individual named Miles Kington. Who he is, I have no clue.
Yeah, me neither.
Maybe somebody can Google him. But his quote is, "Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad." So once again, knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. And I think that could really apply to all of us here in jiu-jitsu. And basically, he's talking about, you can know a ton of moves. Think how many moves there are in jiu-jitsu, how many different moves, concepts you can use. But you got to know how to apply them when you're rolling. If you don't, it's like not, wisdom is not putting in a fruit salad. You have to know when to use them, when it's available, and use those moves properly.
Exactly right, Gary. Especially in today's modern day, you could easily watch 50 moves in an hour, or you could even watch somebody perform 100 different guillotines in 4 minutes or something like that. You might increase your knowledge of what's going on there, but you're really not getting any better at jiu-jitsu. It's just kind of fun to watch. You're not actually spending the time and doing the work behind that. So if you're one of the people, and there's plenty of people, and I've been one of these people, but you want to learn a new move online all the time. So you come to class every day, a new idea, and you try it, and you try to figure it out, and it seems like by the time you get to the next class, you saw something else that was cool, and you want to try this one out this time. So you're going to kind of dabble around in a lot of things. You're not really getting that wisdom, that deeper understanding of the technique. So I urge you to consider spending more time with a smaller number of moves. If you're one of the people that likes to just try random things all the time, try to figure out something that would be good for your game. Spend some time in that. See if you actually become good at something, opposed to just knowing a lot about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I always like that other quote. I know we're on quote of the week, but I'll throw that other one out there, that I would rather have a few tools that are really good than 100 tools that I'm only halfway good at. And it's like I'd rather just have a few moves that I'm really, really good at, can hit them in different spots that, always work for me, than be okay at, 50 different moves that may work, may not work, or may only work against a brand new person. So it's good advice to not just, keep learning everything. Find out what works for your game, drill it over and over, get better with it, and then move on to something else.
There you go. Well said. And we're not really talking about fruit salad or fruit in general or vegetables, but
speaking of fruit salad, I am kind of hungry.
Yeah? I can't help you today, Gary.
Yeah, I'd like a fruit salad right about now.
That's a sometimes healthy snack.
Yes, sometimes.
Because if you eat too much fruit salad, it's just like eating a bunch of sugar. I found that out myself.
Or you can put a ton of whipped cream on it or something.
You always know how to live large, Gary.
Yep, living large, that's the key.
Whipped cream and salads and all that stuff. Speaking about living large, I want to talk to you guys today about 6 a.m. jiu-jitsu.
Man, 6 a.m. is early for a lot of people. That's a tough one to get to, but not for Mr. Eric Beyer.
Yep, and go to ericbeyer.com, and then the article is What Motivates Me for 6 a.m. BJJ Class. And that could... Okay, getting up at 6 a.m., that's early. But being somewhere at 6 a.m. is a whole different kind of early, Gary.
Yeah, so normally you got to get up maybe 4:30, 5, depending on traffic, depending on what you got to eat. So that's even tougher.
Yeah, we're talking about the audiobook, your first year in BJJ, and how hard it is to get that first year. A lot of people, I would say most, go to jiu-jitsu in the evening or after work, and it's a little bit more easier on your schedule. You don't have to change things quite around so much. But if you go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're going to go to morning jiu-jitsu, suddenly you have to go to bed earlier. You might feel a little bit tired at work. It seems like a bigger change on your off the mat life to go to a super early class like this. But Eric is motivated.
Trying to get up in the morning is tough. You probably have to have a fruit salad just to get you motivated.
Yes, that's one way to get started there, I guess.
I had to throw that in there.
You're always throwing fruit salads everywhere, Gary.
Okay.
But our friend Eric has written this article about what motivates him. He trains at Alvarez BJJ, and he feels like very connected to his team, and that's a big motivating factor for when you're laying there in bed. It could be, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're just thinking, oh, I could take the day off. He's got something in his head that kind of chimes in and says, not today, buddy. You got to go to class.
Yeah, when I was reading this, I just kept thinking about what a great teammate this guy would be. He's just wants to make sure he's there for your team. If I'm not there, he actually said somebody may not have a training partner. And it seems like his whole team is like that. He talks about one time missing a class or sleeping through the alarm, and a brown belt training partner, kind of gave him a little grief on Facebook about it, and he's like, I've never been late again. And the brown belt's just all in good fun, but it's like they just seem like a great team, really care about each other. And when you have camaraderie like that, I guarantee it's a lot easier to get up at 4:30 to get to that 6 a.m. class.
Yeah, and it's from my experience, a morning class is an interesting crew that develops that tight bond that you get that you don't always get with like a large class. I mean, you get those kind of maybe cliques compared to a smaller class that's in the morning. Everybody is just forced to work with everybody else, and it's kind of a different dynamic. And I'm always, just get off topic here, fascinated by it's always fun to see somebody in the morning class shows up in the evening class, and it's like, who's this guy? He's pretty good.
Yeah.
And he's been training for a couple of years, and you just never go to morning class, and it's kind of fun. So I don't know, that's just kind of a fun way to think about morning class. I'm on his website right now, and something I just noticed is they have a nice group picture, and I see Eric there standing in the back, and behind everybody, they've got like giant things from the movie 300.
I just realized that is from the movie 300. Yep.
So that'll keep you motivated, Gary.
Yeah, that'll get you going in there.
But I think the main thing that he's talking about and I suggest you read the article, especially if you're doing a morning class or you're maybe lacking a little motivation, is just the process of being part of a team. And it's not just about like your jiu-jitsu, it's about helping your teammates. So we all go through those weeks and hopefully not months where you feel like, man, I didn't get any better this week. But as a teammate, you could feel like, well, my teammates, they're kind of getting better, and I'm part of that, and it's part of my responsibility to get to class and help my team. So, Gary, what was your biggest takeaway from this article?
Going back, like I said earlier, just the camaraderie. I don't know. I was just thinking I'd like to train with Eric, a guy who cares that much about his teammates and, never misses because he's worried about his teammates. But the other thing I like is, man, the guy, you can just tell he's diligent, keeps track of stuff. He's like, hey, I'm 143 classes in. He's keeping track of his classes, knows everything he does, and I just think, man, that's probably a great gym and a great bunch of teammates to train with.
Yep, and I guarantee you, 143 classes, not been training like forever, but there's a lot of people that with colored belts around their waist that if they were forced to do jiu-jitsu at 6 a.m, would have never got past that first month. I mean, that's a difficult hurdle. So the motivation that he uses to get there for 6 a.m. should be more than enough to get you to go after work.
Yeah. Well, what even gets me even more, it's not the article, but if you right next to the article, it talks about who he is. Here's a guy who showed up in his first year for 143 classes at 6 a.m., and he's a regional VP of sales for Claire Solutions. He's also works on web design projects, Boy Scouts, spending time with his wife, and on the side, he owns a glue company. He offers website hosting, designs, SEO, whatever that is, and marketing. He's a Google reseller for email for businesses. Like, man. And on top of all that, the type of guy this guy is, he actually helped us out with our sound. He just called in out of the blue, said he's better, he knows what he's doing, and I know kind of walked Byron through some stuff. So there's a guy who is busy, and I always hear the excuse, I can't make it to class. Talk to Eric. Eric can make it to class and make a living and have a business on the side and work at Boy Scouts, and his plate is full. Yeah,
he's doing it. Swing by the website, Eric, ERIK, and then BEYER.com, and you'll see in this article what motivates me for 6 a.m. BJJ class. If you miss all that, it's all in the show notes. You can go to the website or check your inbox for the show notes. Gary, I don't know why we would wait any longer to get to Shawn Williams. What do you think, buddy?
I think the only reason somebody would wait any longer is to go get themselves a bowl of fruit salad for this great interview.
So grab yourself a bowl of fruit salad, keep the tomatoes out of it, or the tomatoes, keep those out of there, and sit down and enjoy this interview with Shawn Williams. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He has never needed to go check a noise in the middle of the night. He just lays and waits, ready to play guard. Long ago, there was a guard called the Caterpillar Guard. This guard was pretty ineffective. After spending 2 weeks working on this guard, he made a few changes, and it became what is now known as the Butterfly Guard.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Shawn Willimas to the BJJ Brick podcast. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Byron. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, happy to have you on the show. You have a familiar voice, and we'll get to that. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do in BJJ.
Well, I've been training this will be my 20th year. So I started training in 96 over with Renzo Gracie Academy in Renzo. And I was very fortunate to be there, of course. I mean, I went in 96 when I just followed my heart and my passion and went over. And then, I'm sharing the mats with guys who were ahead of me, like, besides Renzo is, Matt Serra, Ricardo Almeida, Rodrigo Gracie, John Danaher, and I came up at the same time. And not to mention all the other killers, guys like Joe D'Arcy, who the Darce choke is named after, and, all sorts of cool things went on at that time, and I was just very lucky to come from there. So now I moved over to the West Coast quite a while ago, but to sort of spread what we have over at Renzo's onto the West Coast side. So to help spread that style of jiu-jitsu over here, I guess you could say. Besides, Half's got it covered up north, so we have to cover it down south.
What do you mean by that style of jiu-jitsu?
I think I always say I was lucky to go to Renzo School, and the reason why I believe I was lucky is because it is an extremely well-rounded style. How I got into jiu-jitsu, just like a lot of other people, I think, is I saw the UFC. I think number 2. Saw Royce fight. I was a karate guy. I was 16, 17 at the time I saw that, maybe 17. Anyway, I had done karate since I was 12 and thought like everybody else, oh man, there's some karate guys at this tournament, watch this. And then all of a sudden, Royce just destroys everybody and makes it look easy. And that really intrigued me because I just liked fighting. I really enjoyed my training. I had great instructors. My karate instructors were great. They were very open to everything. We did a little bit of grappling, but a little bit of takedowns. So from like Japanese jiu-jitsu, and so they were pretty open, and that was my entree into like, whoa, what is this jiu-jitsu stuff? And as I sort of progressed, I saw Renzo fight in World Combat Championship back in 1995. And at that point, I had seen Hickson fight and I had seen Royce fight. And I was considering, like, I really would like to do this jiu-jitsu stuff more. I'd like to learn it. There was nothing in Indiana to learn that from. So I was considering moving to California. And then I saw Renzo fight, and I mean, even if you've not much training experience, if you watch the difference between how Renzo fought at World Combat Championship, how Royce fought at UFC, and how Hickson fought in the old Vale Tudo days, you would see a distinct difference between those guys. And what I saw is that Renzo was much more well-rounded, and that really appealed to me because I came from a striking background. And I thought that he was moving well. I thought that he was taking shots like wrestlers, and he was very aggressive, and that appealed to me. And then fortunately, I saw an ad in Black Belt magazine, good old print media marketing, but I saw an ad in Black Belt magazine that he and his former partner were opening a school in New York City. And at that time, I was going to college upstate New York, my first year of college, and just decided, you know what, like, I'd like to go check this out. And so I went to visit, and bang, that was it. He was such a amazing human that I just said, yeah, well, this is not only does he fight awesome, but he's super nice. So I didn't even go to California. I just went straight to New York. I moved to New York and started training. Wow.
Sounds like as soon as you got a taste of it, you jumped in the deep end.
Yeah, I did. I think I've always been that way. And fortunately, I've had a lot of support, like a very supportive family. And so I just followed what I felt like doing, and it worked out well.
Well, cool. That's always it's cool to see somebody do that and it pay off. You know, sometimes people will just jump into something and it is like a big struggle, but it sounds like it was a good thing for you. Why would your voice be familiar to a lot of the audience? Yeah,
I commentate, the IBJJF events and try to try to stick my technical prowess as anywhere I can into that element and environment. So, yeah, I've commentated since 2007, I think. 2000. I can't even remember. It's been such a long time now. So, yeah, that's it.
That's cool. It's, to me, as a fan, the broadcast is so much more valuable to get the commentary, and to, as a new fan, you're not knowing who everybody is, or most people, you don't know who they are, and so you get, you bring in like kind of like who this person is, who they fought last year. Okay, that's interesting, and it builds the athletes, and that's a big thing. And then you're talking about what they're doing. So if I'm confused about what's happening, you're a lot of times you're sharing what they're trying to do and what they're going to do, it seems like, and it really just makes it, I think that helps boost it from something that people could, who are really into jiu-jitsu could watch, and maybe people who are just kind of getting into it or are curious about it, they could watch it as well with a good commentary, and they could actually enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah, I think commentary adds a really important aspect to our tournaments, because 10 minutes is not always the most exciting thing to watch. Anything that you don't really know what's going on or isn't the most exciting thing to watch. Even if you have some interest, the more you know about what you're watching, I think it brings up the value, and it also gives you kind of a vested interest in watching and learning. And especially because our sport's such a big, our martial art, it's such a deep martial art. There's so much to learn that when you're watching a match, if a good commentator is sitting behind the screen and they're right on with their technique, this is what I always attempt to do, is to explain what each person is doing, what they will be doing because of the grips. There's only a certain amount of things that you can do from each position. So, and then what guys should be watching out for, how they should counter what's happening. Even on failed moves, what the guy was attempting to do, because sometimes guys are so good that they may keep countering things, but those are moves worthy of investigation. So I try to make sure that the listeners always have that platform to learn from. So it's fun for me, and I enjoy doing it. And I think it's a very valuable way to learn, is to watch.
Yeah, and it makes it's a great learning tool, and it makes it a lot more entertaining. For me, it's hard to keep up with all the different names, and I'm into jiu-jitsu, and who's this guy? And it seems like where they train, and who they train with, and all this stuff, and it just makes it so much more interesting with the commentary versus just the sounds of the mat or no sound at all. That could be quite hard to follow, even if you're interested in what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like Super Bowl. If you were a Denver Broncos fan, man, you were probably all their players. You were probably freaking out, But if you were just a general football fan, you were probably having a good time. You probably didn't care if you were really watching the game but the more you know about all of the players, quote unquote, or are in this sport, are athletes. I think it's easier to follow. It's easier to watch. It's easier to have emotion when you're watching. And then, of course, if you're watching it in a technical environment, it's easier to learn if all those things line up for you. Yeah,
I don't want to just talk about commentary for the whole time, but it's important. And I want to. People talk about making jiu-jitsu a spectator sport, and finishes are nice and personalities are nice as well. Get some people with some name recognition in the sport is great. But if I realize, because you've told me that this grip, that if he gets it, he's going to be a big deal. And so now I'm watching somebody just try to get a grip, but I'm interested in that small aspect of this thing. It makes it much more spectator friendly to anybody watching, let alone a trained eye.
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, it's a nice commentary blend when they have a color guy and a technical guy, but that's when you're looking for something specific, it definitely makes, whoa, wow, he's got that grip, as you say, and now what's going to happen? He's going to get the sweeper. Is he going to get the finisher? Yeah, it just absolutely brings a more important element to the contest.
Yeah, I agree. So tell me a little bit about what you do off the mats. What do you do in your free time?
Well, I mean, my free time is pretty much jiu-jitsu all day long. No, really, I am super fortunate. I could do jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. I'm a big fan of mixed martial arts too. I came from a striking background. I love boxing and wrestling and Thai boxing, and I could do it all day long for every waking moment that I'm not with my wife or family. That every waking moment I could be on the mats and enjoying life. I don't need another hobby just because I just have so much fun with jiu-jitsu. I know people say balance, but that is my balance. That's what makes me happy. I'm the happiest when I'm able to train, when I'm able to teach, when I'm able to watch tape, study moves. It's what makes me breathe sometimes. So
is that okay? What makes you happy is jiu-jitsu, and you are in a position to where you could do a lot of it. How important is it to be enjoying jiu-jitsu versus like maybe be at a really good school that you don't really enjoy that much? Which position is a stronger spot to be in?
Oh man, considering the two. So if we're talking, well, first of all, you have to enjoy it. Even if you're a competitor, I was going to make the distinction between if you want to be a high level competitor, you're going to need to go into an environment that's training hard and smart with a great coach, but you may not always enjoy every single element of that road, because obviously you're going to have to face your fears. You're going to have to train on days that you don't want to train, and do things that you don't want to do. You're going to have to go do fitness and blah, blah, blah. So there are going to be those elements. But if you just love jiu-jitsu, you're an enthusiast, you're more or less like not a diehard competitor. I guess you could call it hobbyist. I like the word enthusiast better, because that hobbyist, I think, sort of degrades the notion of what you're. It's sort of like, hey, you're a hobbyist, you're no good. Like, I think an enthusiast is a little bit better word. But if you're training 1, 2, 3 days a week, having a good time and enjoying the road is way more important than like, hey, I train at a place where 6 world champs train, but I hate it. They beat me up every day, and that's not going to keep you in the art very long, I don't think. So I think it's more important to enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy your training partners, enjoy your coach, and then of course, if you want to push it a little more, you can always do that. But I think that's the most important element, is to have fun. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And even if you go to that place where they're real hard on you and that sucks the fun right out of it, and you go compete and you come up a little short, then you have a lose-lose environment versus if you're enjoying the process and you compete and you come up a little short, at least you had a good time getting to where you're at.
No, I 100% agree with you. Yep. I think it's a very important thing. And actually, in competition, for me, one of the best ways they call about getting in the zone, one of the best things that there are several elements for me personally that to bring me out into that environment. But one of them was enjoying the whole entire process. And that is a credit to the people I was around, my team, my training partners, my instructors, and enjoying that process made it easier to perform well. Not being under the gun, or so to speak, or I've had it both. I've been at tournaments where I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't feel like competing, and then you don't do as well. And the other way around, oh wow, you enjoy the whole entire process. It makes everything better.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your style of grappling, maybe a couple of favorite techniques or positions.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of complete grappling, I guess I'd call it. And that means wrestling, judo, whatever works in my environment for judo. Obviously, the ground techniques from jiu-jitsu. And, we've at Henzo's, we did a lot of leg locks, and now still, John Denner's really just gone to another planet with those. But I think my style is something that I like from feet all the way to the floor. I'm not a big fan of just jiu-jitsu that's good on the ground, where it's just not taking away anything about guard polling, because that's fine, especially if you're outmatched or if you are just training light and you don't want to be injured on your feet. But I believe that we should all, as jiu-jitsu practitioners, be good from feet to the floor. We should be as educated in wrestling and judo as we are on the ground. And I think that's been a weakness for a long time in our martial art, and I think it's slowly getting better. But I think it needs more time, and I think more coaches need to understand the importance of those things, because wrestling, for instance, has a huge application on the ground. I mean, when you're getting out of almost all of the bad positions, you can get into single legs and different environments of, especially single legs. Those environments happen all the time when you're getting out of cross-side, when you're in half guard, and if my knowledge and wrestling ability is pretty high level, then I'll be able to use that on the ground as well. Not just wrestling on the feet, but wrestling on the floor is very important. So I'd say I define my style as a very well-rounded style, feet to floor, and maybe slightly more on the submission-orientated end than just positioning. I think that's what defined everyone from Renzo's in my generation, is that they were aggressive finishers.
We talked about how important it is to have fun while you train, and that actually is, for the long term, good for your success. It seems like, to me, a lot of people avoid that wrestling part of the game. Do you think it's just not as much fun, or do you think they just don't have the same passion for it, or are they afraid that they're going to get picked up and thrown hard? Or why is there a commonality of like a gap in the stand-up part of grappling?
I believe it's the fear of what they don't know. I wrestled in college, not at a D1 school. I wrestled at a D3 school, but the reason I wrestled is because it was such an important part of jiu-jitsu. But at Renzo's, we had a lot of high-level Division I collegiate wrestlers and some international wrestlers, and so we had access to a lot of this. And I think, primarily wrestling is misunderstood because the people involved potentially haven't had great coaches in wrestling. So it's not learned well, and it's not practiced well. Wrestling doesn't need to be this conflict of this. I have a good friend of mine named Jamie Crowder. He's the Thai boxing instructor at Renzo's, and I love some of the language that he uses. He says when guys are sparring, you want to have a conversation, not an argument. And I think people think that wrestling is this huge argument. It's two guys come together, and it's like two north magnets. They just come together, boom, and all of a sudden there's this eruption, and there's somebody flying on their head. But that's not how wrestling should be practiced. Wrestling is extremely technical. I mean, it is super technical, and you can flow in wrestling just like you can in jiu-jitsu. If you're two knowledgeable guys, it should be very effortless. You can play on your feet, and it's a beautiful thing. I used to go to the New York Athletic Club, where there's a really strong wrestling program, and there would be guys that were wrestling, they were 60, 65 plus years old, wrestling around, and it was just beautiful. You just see like, wow, that's wrestling. Nobody's getting thrown on their head. Nobody's slapping each other in the face. It's so technical, and it flows just like jiu-jitsu. But I think the problem with, or our history in jiu-jitsu is we haven't had enough good wrestling coaches, or a lot of people haven't, and it makes a big difference when you can flow on your feet and do that so technically. It's beautiful. There's a YouTube clip. I know there was a documentary about Dave Schultz, and a great YouTube clip with Dave Schultz and John Smith just drilling, and that's how it should be. They're just playing around. Those are two super high level guys. So if you've never seen that, just YouTube that. It's a great clip of two high-level wrestlers just training effortlessly and playing around, and that's how wrestling can be. It can be as technical and flowy as jiu-jitsu.
Cool. This reminds me of a few weeks ago. I was doing a little bit of judo, and the coach was trying to explain about taking it like down a level. Don't you don't need to constantly try to do the big throw on me every time. And he said, if we were going to box and you put your head down and you just swung as hard as you could at me, what options do I have? I'm going to have to knock you out. You're leaving me nothing to we're not working here. And so he goes, let's work our collar grabs. And he said, if I pick you up, I'll put you down in a manner that's not going to injure you. And from that point, the whole dynamics of what we're doing, and we're trying to learn some throws, it's changed quite a bit, because I could remember back, 10 or 11 years ago, getting thrown and then also getting landed on by somebody who was like 240 pounds. That was miserable. And I definitely want to avoid that. And so setting those parameters, like, we have to work with this. It's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. Like, you get a little give and take. You're not always trying to go 100%, but when we stand up and we try to, do some sparring, it's a lot more tiring for a lot of people. It's a lot more exhaustive. That we're giving it that 100% effort all the time, and I think it's really holding us back sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Brian. I think when we're training, the best thing that we can do in the beginning is let go. Let it go. Let go of your ego. Let go of whatever it is inside you that wants to win, and make it a journey about learning and relaxation and trying your techniques. If you're focused on trying your techniques, then it becomes less about fighting and more about performing the technical aspect, which makes it a fun environment. Speaking of judo, it's the same. When you train with high-level guys, if you are trying to defend a throw without technique, you're just trying to muscle. I mean, that's when you get hurt. That's when you judo, you definitely get hurt because your knee's going or something's going, because a guy is going to throw you, and you're trying to just push away, or rather than just playing, going with it, it's effortless. You just get tossed and they roll right out, you roll right out, and you're good. You keep playing, So I think it's a big thing to just let go of what you don't know and try what you know, and accept, okay, I got taken down, no problem. Accept it. It's just like jiu-jitsu. If you get arm locked and you're trying your defense, great, no problem. It's technical things are going to happen. But if you're just trying to push a guy away or lift the guy up off the floor, then probably some not so good stuff is going to happen. You're going to be a little stiff, or you're going to get hurt, or somebody else is going to get hurt. It starts to take away from what the learning environment's really meant to be.
It seems like as we were talking about these different topics, you learning leg locks earlier on, and then the wrestling concepts and judo concept, and playing and not going super hard and fighting everything. Those two kind of go together to me. If a lot of times I think people are amazed with the leg locks and how complex they are, because every time they end up in a leg lock, they tap right away to something that's like coming at them like really fast. And the same thing, the ability to kind of play with it and then and work with it, I think might be an important factor as well. The ability to trust your training partners to not damage your leg as you try to escape this. And a lot of times it seems like I'm good for one escape, and if I get it, I get it, and if I don't, I just tap. And a lot of times that gray area of I've nearly escaped, they're going to do that follow-up attack. That's when people get in trouble with leg locks. And if you're not training with somebody who you trust to not damage your leg, you're not going to get those counters to the follow-up, or your follow-ups aren't going to get developed as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. There's knowledge is power on these type of things as well for both guys. So if I'm comfortable, we're talking about leg locks, if I'm comfortable with a heel hook and I drill a heel hook, I'm comfortable with where I can use the boundaries of control versus actually cranking on something, I should be able to put a heel hook on with the total control of you're not escaping or you're rolling around, but I'm locked onto you without actually doing any damage to your joint, unless you try to escape the wrong way, which it would be, if you're not sure of what the escape is, then you just tap. If you know what the escape is and you're trying your first sequence of escape and I'm under good control, then there's this sort of agreement that needs to come, and I think this happens. This is probably the most common thing with new people to jiu-jitsu, is this agreement or this knowledge of I'm trying my escape, but it's not working, and I'm going to keep trying the same escape, or I'm going to keep trying it. And, that's when I think after you've tried your first escape, if you see this amongst two newer guys, like an arm lock, I'm arm locking you and you're trying to do this escape. You're trying. And I'm not, I keep going on the arm lock harder, rather than understanding, I'm pinning you on your back. I've got your thumb facing the ceiling. My knees are tight. Everything's good. And you're trying your escape. You're just not getting out. And nothing is sort of happening. There's a stalemate. If I'm applying the arm lock, my training partner, I'm not going to go any harder. I'll either let him out and move to something different, or I'll just hold. And then usually the guy will go, okay, yeah, you got me after 5 or 6 seconds. Oh yeah, you did. You got me. Okay, good. And that agreement between the both is important to not get injured, is that I'm not going to crank your arm further than what I need to control you. And same with a heel hook. I'm going to make it about isolating the leg and keeping my body tight onto yours with good positioning, rather than cranking this thing any further than I need to for control situation. And then escape wise, I'm going to try my escape, but when it doesn't work and I can no longer, not only when the escape doesn't work, but I can't really move anymore, I need a tap. And he's, for sure you got me. And that's, as a coach, I watch that all the time. I try to educate guys on all the time, because that is a topic that is harder to educate people on, because it's a feel. So, hey, you know what? You did a great job of trying to escape there, but if you can't get out a little sooner than that, then just tap, and then the other guy applying the move can then allow you out after you tap, because that sort of ends all right, good, I got on the arm lock. Now you get to rehearse your defense and you can escape, and then they can keep that roll going if they want. It makes it for a nicer training environment.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the having to control somebody's body for the submission and just making that feeling that they're stuck, and
that's it.
That's a big, and you've seen, I don't know how many hours of live competition you've seen and been not just watched, but been heavily involved in, as you've commentated on everything. You're not just sitting there drinking a beer and watching casually. You're actually actively involved in this. Do you sometimes notice like a respect between opponents sometimes, or maybe the lack of respect between opponents when they're applying submissions?
Yeah, absolutely. If a guy has a name, generally it comes when guys have done either hurt people in the past or have dynamic submissions, and they've done it in the past. We've got a little history. Then, I think that those guys generally get the respect of other high-level competitors. And when the high-level competitor is stuck and something that one other competitor could be very dangerous in, well, then, there's usually that respect given, like, you got me. I think it really depends on the two competitors, how the willingness of each to get hurt. I mean, obviously, if you got two world champions fighting in the open weight together, the potential for injury because one of them won't tap is most likely going to be higher, or if one of them is going to go asleep is probably going to be a little higher, depending on who they are. I mean, I think it's all relative to who they are as an individual and a competitor. But I've certainly seen my fair share of guys getting injured, and I've certainly seen my fair share of guys saying, "You know what? You got me. That was a good one. You got me, and I want to live to train tomorrow and not be injured," which I believe is the smartest move, especially when you're not talking about getting massive amounts of money for these tournaments. Yeah,
and as I'm getting older, you only get one body. And some of these injuries don't go away like they used to, and some of them really will kind of just haunt you for a very long time.
Yeah, they come back. I mean, I've been injured a lot in every sport that I've done. Unfortunately, I'm very injury prone, I guess. I play hard and get injured, but you start to feel it. Like, I'm getting up there now, and I start to feel some of the muscular or tendon injuries that I've had in the past. You start feeling them a little bit. So I think, you're right. You got one body, take good care of it. And I'm not the one that makes a decision. If I was in that environment, I don't know. If it's an environment where there's so much on the line and it's your life, well, then, you got to make that decision, and that decision probably is, I'm not tapping. I'm going to try to get out of this. But if it's not your life, then obviously the right thing to do is tap and keep training.
Yeah. It's always sad to see somebody get hurt in training from not an accident, but more just like a stubbornness. I mean, that's just unfortunate. Can you think of maybe a couple fighters that are kind of known for damaging their competition?
Yeah, actually, I'd say, I think the most glaringly obvious is Rousimar Palhares.
Okay.
I think he's probably that's just like the most obvious case. He's hurt people several times after the contest was supposed to be stopped. And I think that's just no good. There's no place for that.
Those matches are hard for me to watch sometimes. When he's applying a submission, it could be any submission, but he's attacking the feet generally, or the knee. Mm-hmm. And like when I apply a submission, granted I'm not doing it for any money or anything like that, but I'm anticipating a tap. So when I see the hand actually start to move to tap, and when I feel the first, like, these are all things I'm ready for and ready to accept that I've got somebody. And then to watch somebody like, you hear like we talked about already, like the casual watcher or fan versus somebody who actually practices and trains. 3 taps is quick. No, 3 taps is a long time to have your arm or leg in a spot. And it's a long time to be applying something. Does that, you get what I'm saying on this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because when you're the guy, especially if we're at the level that we're talking here is the highest level of competition that he is involved in, and when that first tap comes, the guy that's tapping has already waited until the last possible second to tap. They're not tapping early, especially if it's another high level guy. They are tapping at the last second when something's going to go. And so by the time the first tap happens, like you said, you're quite right. If you're that skilled of a submission artist, when that tap happens, you're expecting it. You know that you've got the guy's limb beyond where they can defend at that point. The tap comes and you let it go. That's by the second or third, like you said, which could feel like an eternity if you're the guy in the submission. You've most likely already started to hurt the guy. And there's no real argument at the highest levels, because there are things like instant replay. There are things like, there's camera angles from all over. So you can't really argue, I thought the ref wouldn't see it or anything like this. Well, there's cameras everywhere in MMA, and they're going to replay that and see if that guy tapped, like if it was that controversial. So there's really no excuse for that and that kind of behavior. And like you said, 3 taps is an eternity if you're getting your arm busted.
Yeah, and it's an eternity if you're applying this. To me, if I'm applying the submission, like I couldn't imagine continuing to put pressure, not just hold steady, but add pressure to that submission if somebody's trying to tell me to stop. Like that would be a long time as well to be offensive with that.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very good point.
So today we're doing this interview. It's February 8th, and this will air, I think, on March 14th. But Palhares does have a match coming up a little after this airs. He's got Garry Tonon. What do you think about that?
I think Gary's a good friend of mine. Is one of the guys at Henzo's. Is John Danaher looks after him now quite extensively. Super competitor. Very talented, well-rounded guy. Good wrestling. Very good leg locks. Great at scrambling. Against a big, huge beast that has a reputation of hurting people. My initial thoughts are, wow, this is an interesting match. But my second thought is, why the heck are you doing this?
Yeah.
And my thing is, I haven't spoken to Garry about it yet, or John, or anything like that. But my thing is simply this: if I'm those guys, if I'm Garry or his managers or anything like this, I'm putting it on the event that I think it's Palhares, which is a fantastic event. I like what their guys are doing, but I'm putting it on them. I'm going to put something on them in my contract that says if Palhares hurts me after the bell, if he does get a submission and he hurts me after your guys are after I tap and the referee stops it and he continues to apply a submission, well, then I want the event to get in trouble. I want the event to pay my medical bills, my rehab. If my ACL is blown, I'm 7 months out of training now. So that it's not just Palhares that is the problem, because Palhares, if he injures you, what happens? He gets booted from the event. Like, whoop-de-doo, you're the one walking in a cast for the next 7 months. So I think that there needs to be a step up on the organization's levels that are going to have this guy in, because he's proven in the past. I mean, he's been banned from everything that he's fought in. And I think that that's a danger that you got to take a look at. You got to say, hey, all right, man, we're and maybe he does. I haven't talked to Garry. Maybe the event did say, hey, if this happens, we're going to pay for everything and give you 7 months. If it's your ACL, we're going to give you 7 months of compensation to make. I have no idea, but to me, it's a little bit of a silly match because there's not. People don't like Palhares. They don't like him. He's not a fan favorite. I don't know what the allure is. If Garry beats him, I'm not sure what he's beating at this point. He's beating a guy that's extremely good at jiu-jitsu. Guy's amazing at jiu-jitsu. Guy's amazing at footlocks. But he outweighs Garry by probably 35 pounds. So, yeah, it's an interesting match, but I don't really see the allure of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I want to watch it. Even if Garry gets out of it, I don't want to promote the idea of Palhares continuing to compete and the way he does. I mean, with a track record like his, it's kind of a scar on grappling.
Yeah, precisely. Like Garry is so fun to watch. There are so many other people that are interesting for me for him to fight, or to fight again, or but that one, yeah, like exactly as you pointed, I think it's almost like, why are we supporting a guy that's been proven to hurt guys in every event that he's been in every major event? It's a shame too, because he's very talented. He's a talented guy. He's fun to watch. I've learned some things by watching his leg locks and stuff, but again, like if you're hurting people, then you can't be supported.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be considered a shame, but I'm not missing out on anything if he never competes again. I mean, like you say, Gary's funner to watch. I think the attractiveness of this particular fight is that it's a big risk. I mean, it's not just a submission only. It's a possible hospitalization, a surgery match. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like maybe people want to watch that aspect of it, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Garry. Hopefully, Gary's not the only one taking risk in this. As far as hopefully he's compensated and covered as if he does get hurt. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, he's extremely talented, and I can see him certainly putting Palhares in some nasty submissions that could send Palhares there as well. But like if there's a risk of somebody hanging on, Gary's not going to be hanging on after the bell rings and or after the tap comes. But vice versa, the other way around. It's not sure of what's to be said about if he is the one tapping. So
yeah. Oh, kind of a little bit of a downer there as I consider this, but it'll be interesting if they both are able to. It's a ways out from now, but wish both of them luck, and I hope it's a clean fight, and I hope it's as entertaining as it sounds like it's going to be. Yeah,
and that event, Palhares is a really great event. I mean, I've watched several of the others, and I like it. So not taken away from anything that they're doing, that's for sure. But I think that's sort of there's some other good fights to be had with Garry for sure.
Have you ever been injured in a tournament, or has it always been in training?
No, I've been injured in competition a few times, actually. One time, the most major one was probably I tore the muscle between my shoulder and my lat, clean off the bone. And that was probably one of the most painful injuries I've ever had. I had to fight the rest of the match with one hand because I did it early in the match, and I couldn't use my left arm really at all through the rest of the fight, which was a little bit of a bummer, but and painful. And I've also torn my LCL in tournaments as well, like basically pulling my leg up to do omoplata, popped it in the match. But most of them were in training.
Yeah. How did you injure your shoulder? What was happening?
I did an arm drag single leg, and where we were fighting or competing, it was a no-gi match, was in a gymnasium, and it was in Florida, and the gymnasium was ice cold. And we were outside warming up, and they had called for my match, and I was well warm, sweaty. When I went into the gym, there were so many things going on that just delayed the whole entire thing. Probably got delayed 20 or 30 minutes at least, and I kept asking them, hey, I need to go back outside to stay warm. It's freezing cold in this gym. And they oh, no, we're going to go any minute. It's one of those things. We're going any minute, and we're going any minute. And so I think my body just cooled off. And the very first, right out of the gate, I did an arm drag single, and when the guy started to sprawl, the muscle just popped. And it was a bummer.
Wow.
Like I said, it was one of the more painful injuries I've ever had. I still have a big knot there. I never got it attached again. But
wow, I guess that's something that you have with you now, I guess.
Yeah, and speaking to the newer jiu-jitsu practitioners on this podcast, injuries are going to happen. They're hopefully it'll be an accident. They're going to happen all the time. But I have a very systemized way of dealing with them because I've dealt with them for so long. And one of the things that I would really recommend or advise if you do get injured to avoid some frustration is don't stop your schedule. So even if you're training twice a week, don't stop going to jiu-jitsu. If you can go and sit on the sidelines and just take notes and observe, that's one of the big things I think throughout my injury lifespan is that I never stopped going to the school. Anytime I was injured, I would always go and I'd sit on the mats and I would watch my teammates and my instructors training and watch the techniques. And so that really helped me get through. You can do a lot of stuff while you're injured to continue your progress. There's a lot that can be done. Yeah,
I fairly recently, my lower back was acting up and I had to step off the mat for a couple of weeks, and I would go to class because that's where my friends are, and that's where I want to be. It's a certain night, and I'm off that night. That's a habit and a routine I've worked into my life, and I don't want to disrupt that. And so I'd go and I'd watch and have fun and pick up a few things, and I learned a lot watching the students roll because I get to see how they roll with each other better than when I'm always on the mat just getting one after the other. It was interesting for me to watch that. So I definitely agree. Go if you're injured and just make the most of it when you get there.
Yep, you're ahead of the game there. You're a bright young man, and it's true. Watching is one of the most important ways to learn. Especially now when you're on the sidelines, you get to watch the people that you're training with on a daily routine. Like you might have a hard time with a guy that does a great knee cut, and he passes your guard with knee cut all the time. But then you see one of your other training partners successfully defending his knee cut, and you're going like, hey, what is he doing? All right, I'm going to start doing this, and all of a sudden you've got some of your answers for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're on the mat, if you're giving somebody a hard time with a part of your game and they ask how to defeat it, I try to give advice, but usually I'll just point them to somebody else who defeats it and let them give it to them, cut me out as a middleman because they know what they're doing, not me.
Yeah.
You've coached a lot and you've competed a lot. What are some of your ideas about coaching a match while it's actually happening?
Give technical instruction. There's Matt Serra's I just watched an episode of I think it's called Looking for a Fight, and it made me laugh hysterically because he was coaching a guy from outside the ring, technical advice, and then there was this ring announcer who was just basically saying how his guy was going to lose and he has no business coming to this state to fight and there's not going to be any easy handouts, and that's not coaching. And then obviously Matt called him out and the guy said like, "Hey, I'm coaching." Like, no, you're not. Coaching is giving your student, fighter, whatever you want to call them, technical advice, and it isn't about just cheerleading. There's a big difference between cheerleading and coaching, and you need to do a little bit of both, but it should never be in disrespect to the other competitor or the other team. That drives me nuts, and I hear it all the time, and I want to pull a Matt Serra sometimes, and I mean, sometimes we used to do that, but but it drives me nuts when coaching it becomes, oh, his arm lock isn't shit, excuse my language, and that's not coaching. That isn't coaching. Coaching is, hey, here his arm lock's coming on your left side, his foot's on your hip, take the foot off your hip. That's coaching, and it drives me nuts because there are several people that are very disrespectful to other competitors and to other teams because they don't understand what true coaching is. And so, yeah, it should be technical insights to what's coming and just guidance. I mean, at the point where your fighter is well-trained, you just need to give them guidance. That for me, it doesn't have to be everything that's going on, but it needs to be technical guidance that they can hear, comprehend, and perform.
I've benefited a lot from coaching while training, both giving and receiving that. Do you recommend that as well? If you've got somebody, like, let's say you're injured and you're hanging out of class and you may be upper belt, coach a couple of people who are rolling and let them work with your feedback versus just kind of watching them train.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Obviously that's up to the instructor on the floor. If I was a student, I would always get permission from my instructor to do so. That way it just doesn't cause mass chaos. But I think it's a very good idea to coach in the training environment and to be coached because it says something for where you are with your focus. So if I'm training and I can clearly hear my coach without looking, and I can execute what someone is saying to me while under a pressured environment, it means I'm pretty dialed in. I'm focused. I'm in tune with what's going on. And I'm in control of my surroundings. And that needs to be rehearsed and practiced because when you go to a competition environment, if sometimes the first time you compete, unless you're a naturally good competitor, sometimes the first time you compete, all you hear is Charlie Brown, like wah, 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 and you can't hear anything, and it's just like this fog over you, and you're just like, what just happened? And that can happen in tournaments. So when you're able to dial in and then all of a sudden you start hearing your coach, it's like an epiphany in a tournament, like, wow, I'm focused in, I'm right where I should be, and I can just allow my reactions and my instincts to take over with a little bit of guidance from that heavenly voice that I'm hearing,
Yeah. So are you mostly coaching in the aspect of defense or offense? Are you telling, like, do your arm bar, or are you saying watch out for that arm?
Yeah, both, because both are important. And when it's the training environment, I'll often let my guys know who I'm going to coach, or if I'm coaching one guy in offense, I'll try to let that offense happen. And then if there's a guy defending or having trouble, I may coach them through the defense, or I may let the whole, depending on the scenario, I may let the whole entire offense happen. If it's an arm lock, coach the guy through an arm lock, and he gets the finish. And then I won't just leave it at that. I'll work with the guy that just got arm lock. Hey, listen, let me show you how to tighten your defense up a little bit. But I wanted to coach that guy through the offense because he's been struggling with his arm lock. Things like that. I think you have to know your team, your students, and the environment that they're in so that you can get someone to perform the technique all the way through succession, so that those things become ingrained in their head, and then of course coach the other guy either after the move is over, help them out with their defense. But I think both offense and defense are so important. So yeah, all parties.
Do you recommend this style of coaching, like actively giving technical advice? It fades at higher levels, or is it always there and always important?
It's always important. Always, always, always important. It's just at the higher levels you can do it less often and with less detail. So not detail, but less of the time through it. It might be little things like get your knee tighter, those little cues that a guy that's already near mastered an arm lock per se just needs a reminder of under pressure. So he might need a reminder. He might need sort of a look to the future. So if he starts the arm lock and you see that the guy starts the defense, you can give him that indication. A corner guy is like, you can see things from the outside that the guy can't see in the inside. So you have to give those insights to guide your competitor through that match. Almost like he can see into the future of what's going to happen, because you can sort of see that from the outside better than you can on the inside.
Yeah, it's funny if you're being coached. Listen, it makes a big deal. I could grab a purple belt, and if they're getting coached by somebody who knows my game, it's like they're rolling like a brown belt all of a sudden. It's like they're doing they could do the things. Yeah,
it's a big deal. I think it's very important, and we see at the highest levels, great coaching make a huge difference. And not to get too far off topic, but I know that was a heated environment about. It's not jiu-jitsu, but in MMA, some of the coaches that have gotten their people into or not been the best coach in that specific environment, like Ronda Rousey's last fight, I think it was really controversial over the coach in the corner and what was happening and how she was coached throughout that whole match. And, there were a lot of cheerleading and going on and there were definitely some technical insights. But to prep her for that fight, I think she could put Holly Holm exactly where she wants if she has the right coach and the right preparation. I don't think it would be a difficult environment to put Holly Holm in a clinch, because that's where Ronda wants to be, is in a clinch. But when you're trying to box a very good boxer and you're not using wrestling, because for her, I know we're getting a little off topic,
that's fine,
but for her, she's a judo expert. Like, her judo is just out of control. So where she likes to be is either with a headlock, an overhook, or an underhook from the clinch. Well, if you have an good ogoshi, she does this throw that's ogoshi. If you have a great ogoshi, which is this underhook, if an underhook, your hands around the waist, you step in front, and it's like a big major hip throw. If you have the level of throw that she has in that position, you need to know how to wrestle, because the easiest way to get into an underhook for a judo player is to have a great single leg or a great double leg, because the defense to the single and the double, when we're shooting down to our knees and sprawling, but when we're up on our feet, is to pull the person up. So you pull them up. So if she's on a single or a double, Holly Holm is going to make an overhook and pull her up, and voila, she's right into a clinch where she wants to be. And she could hit her throw, or at least attempt it. To say that she could beat her, I have no idea, because I don't know how good they both are in that element. But she could be in that clinch with much more efficiency if she had a great preparation for that environment. So I think that coaching comes prior to the match, during the match, and after the match as well. Something that Danaher always did with George St. Pierre, and Faraz, big believer in that, is even after he wins, they still go in the back and they're still going to coach him through some of the more difficult times that he's had in that particular fight. They still go and coach right there, right then and there. Are you content with defending your world champion? Yes. And then they go and look at the problems right then and there. They don't wait for a week after. It's immediately. That's great coaching. That's great leadership. It's very important, I think, in the success of a competitor and just an enthusiast.
Yeah, and there's a line between coaching and strategy as well. I think if Ronda had the strategy of getting her to the ground and just keeping her there, she could have probably implemented that because she was able to take her down. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it, but she immediately went for armbar, and she'd clearly been training the armbar defense, but that had been so successful for her in the past. But to just get her to the ground, keep her on the ground, and make her deal with that pressure, it might have been a lot different fight than just giving it the old 10 seconds and I didn't get my armbar attempt.
Absolutely. And the way she could get into the clinch is where I think that her coaching staff was not up to par on how to relate her judo skills with her punching and kicking skills, and we call that element shootbox. That's a phrase that George and Faraz and John, they use, and it's shootbox is the range of how you grapple with punching and kicking effectively, and that seemed I think that's actually a skill set in MMA that is widely misunderstood. Is the relationship between really high level shootbox and the match on the ground. Like Dominic Cruz just recently showcased some extremely good shootbox skills and put Dillashaw down, even though he couldn't hold him down for very long. He put him down pretty well with good timing and pretty effortless.
Yeah, that was an amazing fight.
Yeah.
It's been really fun talking to you. Where could we go to keep up with you and what you're doing?
My blog is coming out. It should be out by the time this thing goes. It's ShawnWilliamsBJJ.com. I'm just starting a blog that shares tips and techniques and video breakdowns and makes jiu-jitsu a little easier for everybody in the world, I hope. You can go on there and check it out, and I hopefully will have a feedback column by that point. So if you have questions or comments, you can reach out and get a hold of me through that.
Cool. I'm excited about your blog coming out here. Tell me, do you have anything? It's still like I've been before. February 8th is what we're at right now, so it's coming out a little later. Hopefully, the site's up and running by the time this airs. But what do you have in mind? Do you have a certain topic that you really want to get out first, or anything like that?
No, just I want to focus first off in making jiu-jitsu easier for people, and the success that I've had with all my coaches and all my mentors. I think I've got a lot of good stories. I've been in this thing almost 20 years, and I really take pride in my lineage. I think that Renzo's lineage is amongst the best in the entire planet. And my wrestling, I've had amazing coaches in wrestling. A friend of mine named Warren Stout and Dave Esposito, they've been really guidance. And since I've moved here in LA, I've been wrestling with Rico Ciparelli off and on, and I believe that guy is probably the best American technician on the planet in wrestling. He's just really an incredible human when it comes to wrestling prowess and knowledge and skill. And I've recently touched base with Jimmy Pedro and trying to learn more judo, and so I take a lot of pride in trying to learn from the best on the planet. And make and if I can translate that in and make those skills, bring them all together and make things easier for people who don't have those opportunities, then that's my goal,
Yeah, Shawn, we're getting kind of things wrapped up here, but I want to kind of put you to the test here because you're in a spot where you train a lot, and you're doing a lot of jiu-jitsu. A lot of people are in the spot where they train twice a week, and you want to make jiu-jitsu easier for them. What could somebody that trains a couple times a week be doing, or maybe changing or evaluating to make it an easier process?
Stay consistent. That's a great topic. Stay consistent for number one. Not get sidetracked. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. You have compare yourself to technique, not to individuals. Watch tapes. Watch and study. Good competition footage is very important. That's something that I'll be releasing, and hopefully it'll be done by then, is how to study tape. If you don't know how to study tape, I'm putting a piece out on it. Hopefully it'll be ready by that point. So study good competition guys, and like we talked about earlier, is have a great time. Have fun with it, and understand that this thing takes time, and give yourself time. Make it a lifelong journey, not a I want to get my black belt in 2-year journey.
Cool. All great advice, and I'm looking forward to the website being up and running there, and being a follower of that. And do you have an email list or something people can do to make sure they get notified when it's that?
Yeah, it's on there right now on ShawnWilliamsBJJ.com. So by the time this comes out, if that's still there, great. If it's not, I'll have a little. It'll be on the sidebar that there'll be an email list to jam on for tips and techniques to your email.
Excellent. I
appreciate being here, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I'm happy to have you on the show again sometime.
Oh, I'd love to.
All right. Well, thank you for the interview, Shawn.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank Shawn Williams again for the interview. It was a lot of fun getting to talk to him for the first time, and he's part of jiu-jitsu history, and he's not in the past either. You know, like he's not staying there. He's staying active in the community, and to me, his commentary on the live grappling matches is still like, especially when I was brand new, like he tells you why they're doing every little detail that they're doing and how important it is, but still now it still adds great value to the broadcast, and just to kind of consider him, you know, kind of a friend now of the show, and somebody we've got to learn from over interview will make those even more enjoyable to listen to. So thanks, Shawn, for the interview, and we look forward to hearing you in the future.
Yeah, like what you said, Byron, about he is such a good commentator that, you know, is explaining what's going on and stuff like that. But you think how he's probably grown jiu-jitsu based off his commentary. You know, I hear a lot of people who really don't know about jiu-jitsu trying to watch his jiu-jitsu match and just not getting into it. But when you have a commentator who's explaining what's going on, making it easier for somebody not in the know to watch it, you're going to have more people who are going to tune in, more people are going to try the sport. So I just, when you were talking about that, it made me think about how he's probably grown jiu-jitsu just through his commentary. His commentary is so good. I bet people have trained jiu-jitsu just because of that.
Yeah. If you think about jiu-jitsu, it's kind of like the opposite of a lot of sports. As a kid, maybe you grew up in a house where basketball was real big or football, and you watch it on TV, and when you get old enough, you start to try to do it. And, you know, most of us are not, NBA or NFL or whatever acronym of letters.
Speak for yourself, Byron.
Most, not the entire podcast crew here. Gary has competed at very high levels in multiple sports, but you watch it first, and then you try it. And in jiu-jitsu, nobody really watches jiu-jitsu, and then this is what I want to do. A lot of times, MMA will help be that gateway drug, but like you end up on the mats and you're trying it, and then like, yeah, I should go watch some people compete. You know, like that's a cool thing to do. But for the few people that do watch it first, it's so valuable to have that commentary. And for me, when I'm trying to figure out what they're doing, he knows. So even for somebody who trains quite a bit, to watch the match, and he'll say, look at his right hand. You know, if he can break that grip that the guy has with his right hand, this whole position is going to fall apart. And so you're watching intently at this technique, and while watching that grip, and then when it fails, sure enough, you know, the whole position falls apart, or maybe it advances for somebody else. And it just makes it that much more interesting and fun to watch.
Yes, definitely.
So hit him up online there or on social media, and we are also on social media. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter account, YouTube channel, and those sorts of things. If you're on there, look for BJJ Brick and see if we're on that social media outlet. And we want to be where you guys are.
And also, don't forget to go on to iTunes and give us a review. The more stars, the better. But no, honestly, we don't care. We try to get better, so give us what you think we got. We do take those to heart, but try to make your review funny. If you make it funny, we will send you out a gi patch. Send us an email at bjjbrick@gmail.com or message us on our Facebook page and let us know that was you who sent out who gave us the funny review, and that way we can get you out a patch. Sorry, we don't have a lot of money, so we're only giving patches to people in the United States to save on cost. But hey, also it'll get you into our second annual Reviewer of the Year contest that was won last year by the #1 reviewer in the nation, Nathan Hadley. So you want to be up there and be up there with Nathan. So get your reviews in.
Yeah, there we go. It's always fun to read those kind of funny or out there reviews that are poking at us, or just Nathan did a great job with that. He definitely teased Garry a bit, and I appreciated that. If you have any,
I'm sure you did, Byron.
If you have any real actual mean comments, send them to bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we'll hash it out over the interwebs, or meet Garry on the mat, and Garry will take care of things from there.
Yeah, there's nothing better than interweb war.
Yeah.
Those are always good, because I can lie about my skills and how big I am, and nobody will ever know.
That's what we do best over here, Garry.
Yeah.
And speaking of the gi patches, I was down to 2 over here, and we just got a new shipment of them in, so we're stocked back up into the gi patch business. The gi patch we give out for free is a little bit on the small side, I would say. Is it maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches across? We do have, Garry, this is new. I hadn't told this to you yet, Garry.
Oh, see, yeah. Hey, thanks for not telling me.
We have a large gi patch, not large, not huge, but it's a 5-inch gi patch. These were quite a bit more expensive, and I think we haven't done anything with them yet. I just got them sitting in this box over here. But eventually we'll set them up. If you want to support the show somehow, we'll make it to where you could buy it, and the money will go to support the show and help me and Garry out here. But haven't quite figured that out yet. There's going to be some sort of a PayPal or some sort of a way to, I don't know. Garry, this is all complicated, and I'm having to figure things out on the computer again. So, but eventually...
Better you than me.
Eventually, we'll figure out how to distribute some gi patches. And we've talked about, people ask about shirts and stuff like that, but really, shirts is a whole different business, because you need all the different sizes and colors and all this stuff. And then they also have these places that will make you shirts on demand, but they charge $30 for a shirt, and then they give you $2. So I don't know, that seems like a bad deal for everybody. In that sort of a thing. But we now have 5-inch patches. I haven't figured out how to actually put them up for sale for our listeners that want to support us with a few bucks anyway. And we'll figure that out hopefully the next couple weeks.
So definitely be on the lookout for 5-inch gi patches.
There we go. Not huge, but quite a bit. It seems huge compared to the one we gave away for the reviews. But anyway, so let's get some exciting news, Garry, I think.
Yeah, and hey, speaking of more exciting news, next week we have on the guy who brought us our biggest listenership of the week. We had the most downloads from him last time we had him on the show, so we expect another great show. But we have the legendary Shawn Will on next week, so do not miss it.
Yeah, we're talking about all things jiu-jitsu. We're talking about, he's from Australia. He does a lot of crazy, backpacking adventure. We talk about that a little bit too, and just everything. I really learned a lot from how they teach kids classes and how they keep that fun and always keep the learning at a high level. So next week is going to be a great interview with Shawn Will. Garry, before we get too close to the end of the show.
Yep. I got to remind everybody to, if you go through the Midwest, don't forget to train with us at. Just send us a line if you get here in Wichita, Kansas, and we'd love to train with you. So, yep, thanks for reminding me, Byron.
Yeah, hey, Garry, you're trying to weasel out of something here. I could tell by the way you're kind of trying to wrap the show up. But if they do want to train with us, they could email us at bjjbrick@gmail.com. But the music is telling us that this is time for a very special segment, Garry.
What would that be, Byron?
Garry's audiobook of the week.
Oh, not again.
Not again. So this is the part of the show when I throw a random audiobook title at Garry, and he must come up with some sort of a plot or actual substance to this audiobook. And lately, Garry, what I've been doing is typing the title of the audiobook on our show notes, and it's on the website. So someday somebody is going to Google some terms similar to this, and they're going to pop up with our podcast, and it's going to be oh, somebody wrote this book. This is a terrible idea.
And they'll contact me. This is a terrible idea.
So, Garry, you're getting lots of credit for working on a lot of books that online.
I've never done. Yeah.
So, your audiobook this week, my friend? cafeteria food fights, picking the right kind of fruit for the salad.
You know, I figured it was going to probably have something to do with fruit salad since I brought that up 3 or 4 times.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yeah, but, you know, this is a very important book for surviving your adolescence. You think there's always food fights happening in the lunchroom. There's always going to be some knucklehead who's going to start it. And if you're not prepared, you could take a beating. I mean, you have to know what you can get away with. Because sometimes if you use bigger fruit, let's say apples, oranges, or grapefruits, and you throw those pretty hard, man, that's an assault charge right there.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean, you get hit, you know, from 10 feet away by a kid who pitches on his Little League baseball team and throws out grapefruit. That could break a nose. So you've got to be smart. So, I mean, stuff like strawberries, grapes, strawberries, especially with whipped cream on them. I know we talked about that earlier. That's even better because it splatters when it hits. But, you know, I consider myself a solid purple belt with 4 stripes in fruit throwing. So, yeah. So, but it's all about the type of fruit, you know, you do throw. And, you know, stay away from the knucklehead, the guy who's going to throw the apples. Because you want to be on that guy's side. So make sure you're on the same side as the crazy guy so you don't get hit with that. But it's just a good audio book that'll help you survive food fights in the middle school cafeteria. So
Garry,
definitely check it out.
The thing I am most interested in about this book is Chapter 4. Your interview.
Chapter 4, I did put a lot of time into that.
Your interview with Gallagher was phenomenal.
Well, you know, Gallagher, I think, went a little overboard. I mean, the nice thing is he didn't necessarily throw the watermelons. Because, I mean, you throw a watermelon, I mean, first of all, you need to have a lot of strength in your core and in your shoulders, because most people can't really throw watermelons that far. But he figured out a better way to do that. He just took a watermelon, put it on the table, put his glasses on, safety glasses, safety first, guys, and then pulled out an 8-pound sledgehammer and smashed it. But since he had so much force when he smashed the watermelon, everything went flying. You know, watermelon seeds, juice, and he made sure he used the seeded watermelons, not the seedless watermelons, the ones with seeds. So, yeah, it was a very good article, but I would not recommend bringing a sledgehammer to middle school. You could get in a little bit of trouble for that. So, we did talk about that at the very end, that we don't want people to get kicked out of school.
There you go. And for the younger folks in our listening audience, I will put a link to some kind of a Gallagher video on the show notes, and you can check that out. Basically, a comedian in the 80s, maybe, and he would smash fruit.
Yeah,
it was quite amusing.
What a concept!
What a gimmick that was. I mean,
the guy made a fortune for smashing fruit,
making fruit salad in the audience.
Yeah, so. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that people have made fortunes with. A guy makes fortune for smashing fruit. Another guy makes a fortune and throws it all away for eating Subway sandwiches. Like, only in America can this happen.
There we go. All right, guys. Well, we'll check you out next week. As always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
That's pretty good.
Gallagher, Chapter 4. My interview with Gallagher. That was great.
It's easier for me because as you're talking, I could think about like what I could say. You know what I mean? Like you just have to go. You know what I mean?
Chapter 4. Like at first I was like Gallagher, and I was like, oh, that's right. He's the guy who smashed watermelons. Chapter 4.
That's right. He's very important in your book.
Yeah, that was pretty good.